Hi, Mika. Thank you so much for being with us. I'll let you take the stage now.
Yes, hello everyone. Bonsoir. The topic I'm going to present to you today is how to use player motivations to offer more relevant and objective game experiences. My model is a kind of companion that will support designer by giving them a thinking framework in order to ensure a more user-centered approach of game design. I must highlight that my model has not been tested, academically speaking. It's above all a tool that I have developed for myself as a game designer, and that I have conveyed on the different design team I worked with. This compass is both a variant and a fusion of several existing and recognized classification, which I have tried to simplify in order to make it a more accessible tool. So who am I? My name is Mickael Dell'ova. I'm a senior player experience designer, and I'm dedicating my career to making the world a better place through video games. I have several experiences as a UI artist, game designer, UX designer, and accessibility manager. And I have worked on several projects. I believe that video games should reflect today's society, but more importantly, they should be a safe place for everyone. This is why I made a point of finding solutions so that players are taken into account as much as possible in all their aspects very early in the design processes.
So, Mika, we don't
Yep.
see your screen. Did you?
No.
Oh, you can't share it. You can share it. Is that what you're saying?
That's good.
No, we don't see it.
Oh. Oh.
Sorry, I was dealing with something else in the meantime, so that's why I'm a bit late in the process.
Okay.
But we do not see your screen.
Okay, but why?
I know why. Okay, now it's working. There you go.
Yeah.
Yep,
Okay.
perfect.
So, okay.
That's better.
That's good.
Yes,
Yeah, it's better with images.
it is.
So, yeah. So the intro, who I am, it's good. Now, so what are the points that, in my opinion, block a user-centered approach to game design? The first is that game developer, including me, are biased and influenced by their own relationship with video games. This is a real problem for having an objective view of our own work. The second point, developers do not always have a good understanding of marketing or user research studies about player. It is common for game direction to see this type of studies as something that will limit creativity. I personally think that is a wonderful framework of thinking and an opportunity to innovate while always keeping our player in mind. From this postulate, I try to think about what problem we had to respond to. And as a designer that I am, I thought about what goal we needed to meet. So the big goal is to reach for me was how to bring player knowledge in order to ensure objectivity and design quality to the design teams. So I decided to work on a solution that had several objectives to answer. First one, provide a design tool for a more user-centered approach in order to gain objectivity and keep targeted players in mind. Second one, to earn production time by bringing more relevant answer. The aim is to save time by designing better earlier. And last one, use the identification of player motivation to improve the analysis of player feedbacks from playtest. Now that our objectives are clear, we will be able to focus on the solution that I consider relevant, the player classification system. In order to have the most holistic and objective vision possible, I decided to rely on several types of existing classification. The goal was first to immerse myself in the topic, but above all to bring them together in a simple and more accessible tool for game designers. So here are there's different approaches. The Bartles models, the first and most famous one, but a bit outdated. Risk Basic Desire, which discusses the 16 basic needs, values, and motivation that motivate a person. The Quantum Foundry player motivation, based on data from many players. The solutions combines social science with data science to understand what drives gamers. Kelsey's personality is based on personality traits such as communication habits, action patterns, values, and talents. The Type of Fun by Nicole Lazzaro offers a model that focuses on the emotions and the different types of fun, the type of fun that players experience. The Plutchik's famous Wheel of Emotions, which offer an accessible visual representation of human emotions. Amy Jo Kim's social engagement theory captured the motivational pattern seen in modern social games and social media. And finally, Dr. DC and Ryan's self-determination theory is a characterization of basic psychological needs. I know there are others, but I think it was enough to have a good overview for me. Well, wonderful cocktail. Also, these approaches are fascinating. They are not always easy to understand and use in the context of a video game production. So as a game designer, I told myself that, that's a more playful approach in the form of a card game, for example, would be more accessible, visually appealing, and fun to use. So with the help of user research and player knowledge team, I mixed all these approaches. The goal, create a kind of ultimate classification, more accessible and more understandable, which can easily be used by the game designer and all the different people on the game production. So my motivation categories are classified by player profile to make them easier to understand, but it is not about personas. So the destroyer is the player driven by frenetic action. The collector is motivated by the fact of collecting, obvious. The competitor is motivated by the fact of confronting other players to show their power. The altruist is a caring player who likes to share their experience with other players in a spirit of solidarity. The voyager is an explorer really attached to the universe, its lore, and its coherence. The strategist is a conqueror of the mind. They feel strong because of their deep understanding of the game system. And the designer is a creative one. Their main objective is to express themselves through creation. So no one fits entirely into one of these categories. We embrace certain motivation that characterizes us, but we sometimes adapt our behavior to the context. So now we are going to take a quick look at the player profile and their different motivations. So the destroyer type represents player driven by constant action and excited by the chaos they can cause. They don't waste their time with the story or the landscape, only achieving their goal count. The 6 major motivations represented by the destroyer are action, destruction, fear, killing, goal-driven, and energy release. The collector type represents player motivated by the compulsive act of owning and collecting everything possible, but also completing all the game mode, for example. The 6 major motivations represented by the collector are collection, completion, evolution, continuity, reward, and possession. The competitor types represents players motivated by confrontation by the sole aim of proving their power. They enjoy showing off their superiority by trolling others. The 6 major motivations represented by the competitor are confrontation, show-off, trolling, revenge, leadership, and trickery. The altruist type represents caring player who likes to share their experience with others in a spirit of solidarity, always ready to sacrifice themselves for the team, to heal, to protect, and to support other credo. The 6 major motivations represented by the altruist are cooperation, healing, membership, protect, sharing, and giving. The Voyager type represents player forward immersion and contemplation are a priority. Discovering the world and immersing themselves in fantasy freely is essential to their experience. The 6 major motivations represented by the Voyager are exploration, freedom, narration, fantasy, personification, and discovery. The strategist type represents player forward intellectual mastery of the game is essential. Their goal is to shine with their minds and master every complexity of the game. The 6 major motivations represented by the strategist are masterize, challenge, autonomy, planification, learning, and farming. And the last one, the designer type represents players motivated by every opportunity to express their creativity. They'll feel huge pleasure from feeling unique and admired. The 6 major motivations represented by the designer are design, originality, customization, self-expression, testing, and aesthetics. Now the question is, how can we apply and what will this motivation be used for? So the first step will be to define the core motivation of your game. This can be done in different ways, depending on the size of your studio and your resources, obviously. In an ideal setting, it will be interesting to bring together your marketing team, the game direction, as well as the user research or any player knowledge specialist to refine this work. In the case of a small structure, the game direction must be able to define the core motivation based on the core experience. The goal, define the core motivation of your game to provide an overall vision of your ideal player experience. It's a sort of visual compass that can accompany and guide future choices to ensure that the design is in line with your player experience. Here you can see, Here you have an example of the motivation mapping of a game I work on. So I used it to support and justify each of my design choices. And it was very important and very relevant because nobody can challenge a design choice based on the core experience and the marketing target you want to reach with the game. So now we are going to see how I applied them to a specific feature. Sorry. So we are now going to look at how core motivation can support design choices. Let's take the example of a feature I have been dealing with, a character creation and customization system. The most difficult thing when you are a game designer is to choose from a multitude of ways of doing things. Of course, we rely on game direction and the pillar of the experience. But you will see that motivation will provide an additional help in making the right choices. The first option was a system like Overwatch offers, so a complete outfit from head to toe with no possibility of modulation. The second option was a system like The Sims, which offer a high level of customization with a wide range of modulation. The two approaches offer different advantages, but I decided to rely on our core motivation to make the right decision. Here are the relevant core motivation of our game we took into account to make the right choice. So 4 motivation from the designer: customization, originality, testing, and self-expression. 2 motivation from the voyager: freedom and discovery. 2 motivation from the collector: collection and continuity. So after analyzing our core motivation, it was logical that a Sims-like system will be the best to answer to our player experience. This option offers a broader opportunity for expression and creative freedom to our player. So we will now see why it is also interesting to use players' motivations in order to identify the type of profile of our playtester. So why? To better understand the psychology of players and better analyze their feedback. How? By creating your own player profile questionnaire, like the Quantic Foundry one, or directly working with them if you don't have the internal resources. What? Add a reading grid to have a better understanding of the feedback from your player, allowing to better understand and solve certain problems. Let's take 2 types of player whose profile we have identified. Let's imagine we have them test the customization feature we saw earlier. So the first is a player with strong motivation for creation and customization. Quite naturally, he will find the system amazing. The second has a profile of FPS players driven by action and fulfilling game objective. Obviously, his interest will be less and his feedback will be rather negative. So the first feedback is very important because it confirms that we are hitting the core player target with our system. But the second one is also important because we don't want to lose other type of player. And it will allow us to improve the player experience by proposing a system that can be adapted to other type of players. So you can see that player motivation have several advantages for refining our vision of the game during design and also having a more user-centered reading grid of the playtest feedbacks. The conclusion. So the use of player motivation will allow us to take a big step forward in the way we design a video game. So what should we remember? Knowing our player will allow us to make better decisions earlier. It will increase the quality and the accuracy of our choices, which will save us production time. Respect the direction of the game and the creative vision, but always through the prism of our pleasure. Our players is crucial. And improve the playtest conclusions and analysis by adding a more accurate understanding of the player and therefore of their feedback. Thank you for listening. I don't know about the time. I know I'm very talkative, but so if you have any question. I have to say that the original presentation is more complex and more rich. I tried to reduce a maximum for the talk today. So don't hesitate to message me on LinkedIn, for example, if you want more information about this approach.
Thank you so much, Mickael. Sorry, I was just gone for
My
2
pleasure.
minutes.
Yeah.
Just at the moment I'm gone, you're finishing up. That was amazing. Thank you so much. And the slides are so beautiful. Also, I saw a lot of comments on your slides. It's really, really beautiful. So thank you
Thank
so
you.
much for
Yeah,
preparing
I'm
all
a
that.
former UI artist, you know.
Wow.
This is an advantage.
Yeah, I would love to have slides that look that good. Okay, so are there any questions in your Q&A? We have like a few minutes so we can answer these. Let's see.
Yeah, you can also call me for beautiful PowerPoint presentation.
Definitely. Okay, so I think we can take the question from Valentin. Where would you put players driven by the visceral sensations of speed and frantic movements? That's very specific.
Yeah, what is the question?
Where would you put players who are driven by the visceral sensations of speed and frantic movements?
It's clearly the destroyer.
Clearly.
Clearly a destroyer profile. Yeah. Hurry. No dialogues, no narration, just objective and yeah, clearly a destroyer.
Do we have other questions? You can also, it seems that in the Q&A, the questions were for previously.
You can also test the player profile questionnaire from Quantic Foundry. This is clearly the base of my work. So you can, yeah, it's pretty funny to test.
We have a question from Siamantak. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right. I apologize. Who's coming up right after you and is asking, was the destroyer art somewhat inspired by Goddess Kali?
Yeah, I work with, it was not, it's more the designer with different arms. I don't know if you remember it, but I worked with a great illustrator, GOM, G-O-M. You can find on my LinkedIn post. It's a former colleague from Ubisoft, and he worked on the different illustration of the player profile. But yeah, the more Kali Indian influence are more on the designer. But you can ask him for the inspiration of the different player profile.
Okay, so I was looking at the other questions. A question from Anatoly. What is the perfect image of player of ideal RPG? I'm not sure if I understand the question, actually.
Yeah, not sure.
No. So if you can rewrite your question, that would be easier. Okay, so which roles in the game industry should know about this profiles? Game designers, researchers, everyone?
Everyone, every person who wants to work on it. I was just a game designer, now a user researcher, even not a UX designer. I was a UX designer, but I did not make UX design studies. But yeah, all these things was about my observation and how many times I saw game designer completely lost in what they had to offer to the player, and sometimes just yeah, offering things based on their own player experience, like, oh, I put this in the game because I'm a big fan of GTA, and I was, but this, we are not making GTA, and our player are completely different. So yeah, it was how we can find a tool, a simple tool to guide the game designer, often lost in so many possibilities to answer question and so many way to make a feature. So yeah.
How do you determine the player motivation profile after the game is mostly made, but before it's been released? So let's say an indie developer makes a game without a strong sense of the player motivation profile at their beginning.
Yeah, it's complicated because I developed this methodology, this tool on Beyond Good and Evil 2. So the game is clearly not ready to
Love to see that game.
Yeah, to ship, yeah. But so yeah, we just I just applied as a theory for now. Obviously, my goal and my dream is to work with more yeah, user research team, for example, develop our own questionnaire. But yeah, I don't have any feedback about after the game release and how we can use it.
Yeah, it's more like after the game is mostly done and but before it releases.
Yeah, but there is a lot of interesting things to do with that. We can use data and, for example, create in my big presentation, I'm also talking about how we can create a feature mapping and transform this motivation mapping of the feature in datas, and how we can yeah, analyze the behavior of the player and yeah, validate some motivation for the feature, but also have a sort of overview of all the motivation and the feature, and learn about that to yeah, to balance the game or improve the game, but based on the behavior translated in motivations. I'm not sure if it's really clear, but it's clear in my mind. But
yeah, I mean, it's always difficult. Making games is difficult, and
yeah,
so having straightforward answers to many questions is usually impossible. So
yeah,
no, I thank you so much for your answers, Mika. Thank you so much
my
for putting
pleasure.
all these beautiful slides together in such a short time. It was a pleasure to have you. It's been a while that we were talking about
Yeah.
collaborating, and I'm excited. Do you want to take just like 30 seconds to say what you're working on right now? Can you?
Oh yeah, yeah, a lot of things, because I stopped to work for big big studio. Now I'm working as a teacher, as consultant in accessibility, mostly because my other specialty is diversity, inclusion, and accessibility. But my ultimate goal is to create my own video game studio, ethical games studio, dedicated to ethics, diversity, inclusion, and obviously accessibility. So yeah, stay tuned.
Sounds amazing. Thank you so much, Mika.